Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, same to you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so just a quick recap. Okay, let me just introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Sadiq B. I work at Nigeria Express Management Agency, and we have our speaker here, Mr. Ashish, also. So I will forward the mic to him so that he can introduce himself properly. Before we started, I want to appreciate our management team of Nigeria Express Management Agency for their for the time they give us to and also joined our webinar. Okay, thank you so much, the team of management team. Thank you. We really appreciate your presence. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Ashash, you can have your purpose. Thank you. Let me forward the. Let me make you a host, please.
I'm getting a little noise from your side. Is it everyone okay with voice? Everyone's voice is okay. Are you listening it fine? Is it only me?
Yeah, from my end,
The voice is okay.
it's very okay.
Good.
The voice is okay and audible.
Oh, great.
I complained earlier, but my voice is equally okay here.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so yeah, let me know when we have to start and we will quickly get started from there. I'll quickly check the screen sharing that it works and then we will move forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can start. I make you the
Okay.
host also.
Nice. That would be nice.
Thank you.
So can everyone confirm if you see the screen and you hear me okay and see me fine?
Yeah, sure. Great.
Good. So welcome everyone to this training. We will talk about migration to cloud. I'll talk a little bit about the concept associated, some of the tools available, and hopefully you would learn a little bit more on how cloud migration works. So my name is Ashish and I would be helping you today with this particular session. A little bit about me. I'm a technical trainer based in UK, London, and I work for AWS. I'm working there for last 5 years and been delivering trainings like this to lots of customers all over the Europe. I hope you would be learning a lots of things about migration today. I've been working into various fields before. I've been into Dubai for a couple of years and then I moved to UK and I run lots of other I create other resources like Udemy trainings as well as some books I authored. You could find all of them into my website analogiescloud.com. And if you want to get in touch afterward, reach out on LinkedIn and would be happy to connect with you all. And thank you for having me. I hope you would be getting the best return on the time you're investing for next 60 minutes or so. And in between, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into chat. I'm monitoring chat on a different screen, so I should be able to pick up those questions and answer it. Anything which is relevant to this topic, please feel free to ask. And anything which is not directly relevant, maybe you could check that question. Get answers to this question offline and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn should not be an issue. So we'll quickly get started and we'll discuss what is AWS migration and how it actually works, what options are available with it. Everyone okay? Give me a +1 in the chat if you are all okay to move forward and if you're all set to move forward. Give me just +1 in the chat or say yes or okay. So it gives me indication. Great. Thank you. And in between, keep asking questions. Shouldn't be a problem. If not me, someone else from the community can answer. And it's good to know that community are helping each other, and I'm very proud to be part of your community too. Let's keep moving forward. So what we are going to talk about is migration to cloud. What are the options available for me as a business or as an individual when I want to migrate to cloud? Let's go ahead and talk about those aspects as we move forward. Now, I prefer to explain things through analogies because if you look at technology, technology is not coming from outer space. technology has been driven by common things which we see all around, and that's what we are trying to see with migration also. You would find people migrate also. So let's first look into that, why people migrate. So probably this could be a good picture explaining people's migration. Obviously not like a full grown person, but a kid migrating. Maybe her mother or his mother is sending him or her to a outside world, probably into aspect of a better future. And basically idea is to make tomorrow better than today. It could be n number of reason. Maybe you are looking for some opportunities for education or something else. We'll talk about that. Also, you will have seen bird migration too. When there is a winter in place or when there are some complication in the weather or food is less, then birds also migrate and they go to a different place where they can have a better life, can stay there for a while and then maybe come back. So it could be happening between people or it could be with your birds. People may migrate from an urban center from one city to another city. Maybe they migrate from rural areas to urban areas. They will migrate country, like I migrated 2 3 countries so far. So obviously lots of things are common with cloud migration as well as people migration. So let's now try to answer why organization would be migrating to cloud. Why somebody would decide, hey, I want to use cloud based services. What is the benefit on that? So benefit is same, that we want to make tomorrow better than today. Organizations may be running lots of legacy application or old school application like Windows, SAP, maybe VMware, databases, mainframe computers, and they want to migrate these services to the cloud so they can get the most robust infrastructure. They can scale their application. They can use additional services like machine learning. They can make it secure. They can reach out to many people all over the world. And that's why organization go to cloud, migrate their application to cloud to make their application modern. So what they are trying to achieve, they are trying to maybe accelerate the business transformation. Everyone is talking about digital transformation, so companies also want to get benefited from it. They want to increase agility and innovate quickly. When you are in cloud, you can experiment very often and you do not have to worry about lot of cost associated with that type of experimentation. And that's why companies feel very confident in innovating and creating business value to the customer using cloud. Also, they will be reducing the operating cost. If they maintain data center, they have to pay for electricity, then cooling, and then maintenance and building and real estate. That will all be gone when you are trying to use cloud-based services. So reduce operating cost, as well as we can now access the scale cloud offer performance and operational benefit it offers. So maybe I want to launch a server for 100 user or 10,000 user or 1 million user. I could leverage the scale cloud offers and can get started much faster into cloud. So these are just some of the benefits companies are trying to get. Now, nobody just migrate to cloud because it sounds good or maybe somebody else is doing it. Everyone is looking for getting some business values out of it. And unless there is a business value, there is no point in migration. So we need to understand that what business value we are going to bring in. Think about yourself. Maybe you migrate countries, or maybe you migrate from one class to another, or one city to another city, or you go from job one to job two. So why you migrate? Maybe you needed better salary. Maybe you are getting better position. Maybe it was a better company where you wanted to work for. So there can be n number of reasons why somebody would be migrating to a different job, and same would apply also for cloud application migration. Okay, let's keep moving forward. Now, what we need to do to migrate? Let's first talk about 3 phases of migration. First phase is called plan, second is called prepare, and third phase is called perform. So we would be planning for migration, we will be preparing, we will be getting ready, and then we will actually be performing migration. Let's first talk about people migration. So let's say you want to go to a different country or a different city. So what you need to do there, you need to look for skills. Like if you are going there, probably you want to start a business or you want to get into a job in a different country. So what skills are of requirement there? What kind of people are getting jobs there? So you need to look for skills which you have or not. You need to check whether you have legal document ready for that migration or not. Do you have finance to go to that place? You have to survive there for maybe a month or so, or maybe you would need to take a ticket, or maybe to take your family with you. You may need to have transportation arranged. You may have to have your pets taken with you, or maybe you have accommodation to be arranged also. So you have to plan all these things. You can't like wake up in one morning and say, I'm going to change my country. No, it will require a lot of planning before that. So once the plan is done, let's say you identified that, okay, let's say in that country there are a lot of IT engineers required, or they require lots of doctors, they require lots of nurses. So that time we need to build those skills which will help me in being employable, or by which I can get employment or start my own businesses. So that's why I would perform my readiness first. I will check, am I ready for migration? Are you ready? If you are not, what are the gaps? Maybe I do not have the money, so I have to arrange the money for that. Maybe I do not have the skill, so I have to acquire the skill. Maybe I do not have the legal document required to work there. I may need to get those visa or approval processes. So that is where I will first do assessment of where I am, what my current situation is, and once I know what gaps are, second thing will be I would prepare for it. So if I would be needing visa to go there, I would start applying for visa. I will get visa for myself and my family. Maybe I am going to take my pet with me, so I need to have vaccine done for them. Probably that country require vaccine certificates for pet, so we need to do that. If I'm migrating also with my car, maybe I'm sending my car, so maybe there is a documentation required for taxes, or it's a fitness, or maybe it's environmental impact. If I'm going to a country which is very cold, now I have to be ready for that weather. I have to buy clothes suiting to that environment, and then plan and prepare, buy ticket, book accommodation. And that's what we did here, is mobilize our resources. We got ready for migration. Whatever gaps we identified in assessment, we fixed them, and now we are going ready to get migration done. So this is where my plan and prepare phase finishes. Once you have done planning, once you have prepared everything, you packed your bag, you got documentation, you got the currency, you got your clothes, you would now go ahead and perform the migration, actually boarding the flight or boarding a ship or a train and going from a place to another place. That's what we are trying to do here. That is what we call perform. So we perform migration, and when you go to a new place, you have to adjust there, right? So let's say your son was studying here into a class, and when you move to next place, you have to find a school for him or her, right? You need to find a place to stay. You need to follow some best practices when you are migrating. So this all is called perform, and that is in technical term is called migrate and modernize. So maybe your routine was different in your home country, but you migrated to a new country. You have to adjust based on the routine in that country or the way that country operates. So that's how you have to perform the migration. So three phases. First one is assessment. Second is your mobilization or preparation, and the third one is migrate and modernize. That is how the process of migration actually look for people. Cloud migration is not very different too. When you talk about cloud migration, the phases are same. We plan for migration, we prepare for migration, and then we perform the migration so that we can make your application available into AWS cloud. Let's see that. So first thing you need to plan for is what I am doing, why I am migrating, what is the benefit I am trying to achieve as a business. Am I looking for lowering my cost? Am I looking for better performance or better scalability or better compliance? So I have to first talk about those assessment. I have to check where my organization is, how many applications I have, which of them have to be provided, and all of that will be done through your planning phase. This is what we call assessment phase. Assess your migration. Once this is done, what is the next thing you will be doing? Next thing you would be doing is to prepare. Once you know that, okay, I have XYZ application to migrate, I have 200 server, I have 20 application, one of them is high priority, 10 of them is low priority, remaining is a average priority. Based on that, I would create a plan and refine the business case. Obviously, I have to justify to my business that, hey, we are migrating and we may needing this much support from you as a business to operate into cloud. And that's why you need to prepare a business case for them. Tell them what is the benefit, what is the challenges you are facing currently, and how you want to address those problems by moving to cloud. So that is what we call a prepare phase. So we plan, we check what we have, we prepare how we are going to take it to cloud, and in the end, we actually perform the migration. And in that migration, we use 7R methodology, 7 Rs of migration. We will talk about them also. So two takeaways from it. First is phases as called plan, prepare, and perform in our day-to-day world, but in cloud world, they are called assessment, mobilization, migrate, and modernize. These are the three phases on which your migration cycles will be carried out, or three major steps into your migration journey. Anyone, any questions so far? Anything which is confusing? Anything which is not clear? And Sadiq, if you have any question or if you want me to go into a specific area or discuss something, feel free to let me know and I would be happy to adjust it. Shouldn't be a
Yes.
problem.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it's moving. We can just go ahead. Thank you.
Great. Welcome, sir. Okay. Now, let's say we want to move to cloud. Fine, we decided. So we want to save cost, right? So probably my current cost is, let's say, X amount of dollars I am paying to run my workload on premises. So this is my current operating cost, which I'm showing up here. This is my current operating cost as we see here, dot. My intention is when I move to cloud over period of time, my cost should come down, right? Because whatever I'm spending to run and maintain my data centers, I'm moving to cloud and I want to bring that cost down. So my intention is that my cost should come down and I should be paying less money and I should be saving more money. When you migrate to a country, obviously that is also intention. Maybe you want to save more savings, you want to get lot of things, so we should be able to get lots of saving done from that. So that is all possible. We can save cost, but we need to be little more uh, vigilant about what is going to actually happen. Let's go ahead and talk about that. So this is my expectation that I am here, I am spending this much money on my infrastructure. When I move to cloud, I will be sending this much money onto cloud. So this is my target operating cost. But what is going to happen when you do this migration? For a while, your cost would not be exactly coming to this low period. This is how your cost would look like. So when you say I'm going to move cloud to cloud, what is going to happen? For a while, your cost will go up and then the cost will gradually come down. Why it is going up? This is what we call migration bubble. So let's consider this. You are into country A, you want to go to country B. So you have to obviously plan for flight ticket, right? So that is a cost associated. You would be staying in hotel for a while. So there is a cost of that. You paid for your visa. So there is a cost. You will be eating food outside. So there is a cost for that. So what you are seeing here, there are additional costs which is coming up to me because of these things. I'm not sure how these lines are coming up here. Is anybody drawing? If you're drawing, please stay away from it because it will may create problem for others. So please refrain from it. Please do not draw. If you have any question, feel free to put them into chat and we would answer those questions. I have no clue how to remove these things. Is anybody else seeing these lines here, the blue lines, or is it
Yeah.
me only?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's visible. Someone scratched. Yeah.
Yeah, not sure if there is a way. Yeah, I'm not a Zoom person. I do not use Zoom a lot, but let me quickly check if there is a way to get these lines
Maybe you
removed.
can disable annote some. I think some.
Annotation. Okay, maybe the owner of the meeting should be able to do it. Probably.
Let me try and see.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah, that would be easy. So it won't be distracting people. Okay, you tried to move his clip down. No idea, sir, how it works. Yeah, let's see. Let's wait for a minute, otherwise we will continue.
I couldn't find it precisely.
Can I stop sharing first and then start again? Will it help?
Yeah, I think let's try that, please. Okay.
Yeah, let's me do that. So I'm stopping share. Yep. And I am trying to, so there is a whiteboard option, and I could say host only, and who can initiate with whiteboard in the meeting. I'm putting it to host only. So probably it would solve the problem which we just had. So it has host only now, and I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. Do you see the screen now? Hopefully, everyone.
Yeah, now fine.
Yeah.
Great. So
Yes, okay. Clear now.
Perfect. So we are starting here. We want to go here, but as I said, that when we are migrating, there would be additional cost of food, cost of clothing, maybe cost of train ticket or air flight, or maybe hotel or accommodation. So I am having initial cost hike, and eventually it will be coming down. Same happens into cloud also. When you are performing your cloud-based migration, what is going to happen that you may be planning and doing assessment. So you may hire a third party or a consultant who could help you with this type of assessment. When you will be migrating, you also need to train your people, right? They should be able to operate into cloud. Your staff should be able to operate into cloud. So that's where we should also be able to write down or create these planning and assessment and all these things. Uh, Anyone has a question, please put them into chat and we can then answer it. Giving everyone unmuting will be creating problems. So if you could just put your question into chat, I would try to answer. If right now, no, I'll reach out to you and answer it. But please put your questions into chat and we will try to address it. Thank you. Thanks, Miguel. Now, once I have done this kind of approach, I am now moving to cloud, and then the process still remains the same. We have assessment phase, we have mobilize phase, migrate and modernize, right? So these three things we have to do. Let's see how we can make this migration easily, or how we can migrate in an efficient manner. That's what we are discussing. So you may find that lots of consultancy firms are there who can help you with your migration. Like if I give you my personal example, so I was working in Dubai, and then Amazon hired me and they offered me a position into London. So obviously I had to move from Dubai to London to join Amazon here. What they did, they hired a consulting firm who helped me filing required visas for me and my family, and they helped me into doing the actual migration also, like my ticketing, my hotel accommodation. Even they helped me in getting a school for my son selected, where I should be staying, what is the efficient place, how I register into healthcare services. All of these are done by that service. So what Amazon did for me, they hired, or not only for me, they do it for every person they hire, which is coming from a different country. They have consultancy firm or hiring firms who would help with all the process of all the legal formalities which is required. So all immigration formalities, then ticketing, then probably shipping your goods, then initially funding. Lots of companies offer some extra money to employees when they are migrating because there is a cost involved of migration. They also help with housing, temporary housing, and they help me in getting registered into healthcare services or my council tax or for my income tax. So they have facilitated everything. So same thing can be done by your cloud provider also. So like a agency can help you with all your migration need, a cloud provider can also help you with migration need. And if you are migrating to AWS, AWS runs a program which is called AWS Migration Acceleration Program, or in short, it is called MAP. So idea of MAP is that whatever is required for a successful migration, let's help customers with that. Probably you are doing cloud migration for the first time, but AWS has been helping lots of customers do migration to cloud. So they have built understanding, they have built knowledge, they have built tools. So they are trying to help every customer who is moving to cloud by enrolling them into a migration acceleration program. So you could initiate this request, and based on your qualification, they would be allowing you to help with your migration. They would have meetings with you and help you in understanding what should be the process to move, what methodologies I should be offering. They will be giving you the tools so you can plan your migration properly. You would be getting help from AWS partners. So let's say you are already working with some partner, and now AWS partner can help you in migration also. They will also give you some funding. So if partner is charging you money or there is some money involved in migration, AWS will fund that money, so you do not incur additional cost on your own accounts. So that will be possible. They will provide training, because once you are in cloud, you need to learn how to operate cloud efficiently. So training will be provided, and obviously support and services will also be provided for all the migration. So like consultancy firm offers you a smooth ride or a smooth migration, similarly AWS program, which is called Migration Acceleration Program, would be helping you in performing the migration. So I hope this thing is clear. I'm getting a question here from Miguel. When we migrate the data to cloud, it is controlled by service provider. We lost control, is it? How come? No, you don't lose control, right? So let me ask you a question. You deposit money into bank, right? Is it your money or their bank's money? It is still your money. You could withdraw it whatever time you want. So you do not lose control. You control the data. They provide the infrastructure where you are storing. So let's say you rented house. Rented house doesn't mean that your landlord can walk in any time in your house. They have to get permission to enter into house, because currently you are the legal occupier of the house. So same way, when you are moving your data to cloud, it is still your data. Cloud provider would not be looking into that data. They will not say, hey, what Ashish uploaded or what Miguel has uploaded. No, they are providing infrastructure, and we just leverage those services. That's how it works. And you don't have to take my word for it. Cloud providers have to go through different criteria, different type of approval compliances, and that's how you would be able to provide the security policies on top of it. So when I'm storing something into my hard drive, when I'm sending Gmail to someone, it's my data is still in Google's provider's cloud, right? It doesn't mean they are going to sneak into my email. They have to follow some standard. I'm using WhatsApp. It doesn't mean WhatsApp can read all my message. I can enable encryption, and only sender and receiver can receive the message, and no one else can look into that. So that will be taken care by cloud provider. If you are concerned, you could say, I am going to use additional layer of encryption on my data. So whatever I am uploading, I would upload it by encrypting first myself. I will put it into cloud. When I need it back, I would decrypt and then read it. So those compliances can be implemented by cloud provider. And if you do not trust, you could implement your own requirement on that. Should not be an issue. What about data privacy? Service provider can see access all data. Not legally, Ashutosh. It's not mandatory, but let me put it this way. If a government agency asks your data, let's say your company or your data needs to be provided in a court of law, a government body requires it, so they would raise requests with AWS has their team of lawyers who would go ahead and check validity of the request. Is it legitimate request or not? Why access is needed? How much access is needed? So nobody is above the law. If a government body is asking data which is stored in any cloud provider, they have to provide it to government. Nobody is beyond that, right? So privacy is there, but you have to abide by the government laws which are there. Apart from storage space provision, what other services do cloud provide? Mike, there are n number of services. So it is, you think of various aspect of cloud, like storage is one. Compute, let's say you want to process your workload, you are uploading a photo or you are uploading your data and you want to process it. So analytical services can be there. You may use machine learning into the cloud. You could obviously store, you could then perform networking connections using cloud. You could then process data into cloud. You could perform artificial intelligence related service into cloud. So in AWS, there are 200 plus services which serve various aspects of your cloud workload. It could be simple as running a simple code, or it could be like controlling a satellite, or it could be controlling your IoT devices, or it could be learning or teaching a new machine learning model. It could be n number of services. So there are various services available into cloud. Okay. Any more questions before I keep moving forward? Anyone, any confusions so far? Good for us to answer at the end of lecture. It may depend. It depends. If it is a relevant question, I would try to answer it. But yeah, that is a good suggestion, Khader. You could go ahead and provide some information. Now, Muthu Sarthi has a question. Can you please provide some tool name used for mainframe to SAP migration to cloud? So check for AWS website, Muthu Swami. So my suggestion would be, so question which can be easily answered by Google, it is not worth spending time on, right? So anything which is very confusing, I would be happy to answer it. But common question which you can type in Google and can get lots of answer, it is not in interest of time of everyone to talk about that. But there are tools available. Just search for tool for mainframe to SAP migration. You would be able to find tools. Should not be an issue. All right. If you can't, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I would be happy to help you out there. So let's now talk about some of the tools which you can use for cloud migration. So there are various tools. Tools are related to assessment, inventory collection, business case creation. When you mobilize, those tools are for deep discovery. Planning is related, landing zone can be created, workload migration, which is your server migration, and data migration. So these are phases within each phase of migration. So assessment is one of the step, and within assessment, you would do inventory and business case, in mobilize, deep discovery, planning, landing zone, and in migration, you would perform migration of your compute as well as your database services. So that's all tools are. Now, these tools can be provided by AWS or it can be provided by third-party services also. So these companies which you see here, BMC, Deloitte, Device42, Continuo, Affinity, these companies also help you in migration of your workload. So depending on your use case, you may use some services provided by AWS or you may use some services provided by your third-party providers. Should not be an issue. With services work, so there is a tool called Migration Evaluator, which checks what is available in your environment. Then we can collect data using Systems Manager or CloudWatch as a service. Then we can perform assessment and mobilization through application discovery service. It is called ADS for short. Then we can check business readiness through CART, Cloud Adoption Readiness Tool, or Migration Readiness Assessment. And some of the tools are partner only, which means end user do not have access to this tool. Only AWS partner or AWS employee would have access to the tool. Similarly, there is a tool for migration portfolio assessment, and through that you can perform business case creation as well as plan your migration. And then when it comes to build a landing zone, a place where your workload will go, that time we use control tower and service catalog. Also, we have server migration services, which is called AWS migrations application migration service. There is a service called VMware Cloud on AWS. And for data migration, there are various services available. And to monitor things end to end, like a project manager, we can use services which are Migration Hub. So these are some of the tools which are provided by AWS to help you with your migration. And every tool has their own specific use cases. Depending on that, you should be able to employ tools and then perform your migration. But these are portfolio of AWS tool, and similarly, third-party tools also exist if you want to utilize those services. Any questions, anyone so far? Let's say you now decided to migrate. What would be your strategy? What methodology you would be using? How you would perform migration to cloud? Let's go ahead and talk about that. These are referred as something called 7 R's of migration. What these 7 R's are, I'll talk about them one by one as we go forward. Let's take some simple example from your house migration. Let's say you are into one house and you are shifting house. What could be required in that case? So let's say you are moving house. You are moving from one city to another city, or maybe within city, you are moving from one house to a smaller to a bigger or bigger to smaller, it depends. So what if you have to move there and now you need internet connection? So if you need internet connection there, you can check with your service provider if they also provide internet on the next location. So like I am using internet from a company called Virgin Media, and Virgin Media offers internet on the last place where I was. So I was able to migrate my connection along with me. I did not had to ask for a new connection. I was able to get that connection transferred to my new place. So we can utilize that type of services where we are saying we will do provider level lift and shift. Let's say you are operating into a bank, like I am operating into a bank called Barclays Bank. My account is currently in Barclays Bank. Let's say I move to Spain. Now, if Barclays Bank has a branch there also, I could go ahead and utilize that account there also. Should not be a problem. If Barclays Bank does not have branch, then we have to look for a new bank, right? Hope you're getting the idea. So like you can do a provider level lift and shift, that is can be for internet connection. This is what we call as relocate. You just relocated your work or your resources to another location, but with the same service provider. Then your computer system shut down, disconnect, pack safely, and shift. So you have your computer system, you want to take it with you. So obviously you will shut it down, you will pack it properly, and then you will start shifting it. So that is what we will call something called rehost. We are still using the same computer. We are just moving it from one place to another place. That we are doing is something called rehost. Then a roller blind, let's say I'm using some blinds and those blinds has to be put into a new place. So what I can do, I can cut them to the size because maybe my window here is longer. In a newer place, it is a narrower window. So I could go ahead and cut it. Maybe I modernize it a little bit. Rather than manually pulling the blinds, I could put a motor and through remote, I could start using that light, that remote. So lift and reshape. So I'm taking that resources and then reshaping it to my destination. This is what we call in technical term call replatform. I will give you cloud related examples also. I'm just trying to bring you various aspects of how we can perform relocation. Let's say you are using a study table. Now it is old study table, but very firm. You still want to use it, but the tabletop is smaller. So you could say, okay, I am going to redesign this table for my migration. I would add a bigger top. Maybe I would add caster so I can move it freely here and there. And I would be adding a power socket so I can connect my devices directly on that. So what I did here, I performed refactor or I redesigned it. So it is still a table, but it has been improved to be a bigger size and maybe moving freely and have power socket also. So we have created a refactoring here. Then let's say I have a cooking oven. Now my cooking oven is, let's say, 3 years old. Now there are newer models which are more energy efficient, and I can talk to my vendor. So maybe I'm using an oven from a company and I could talk to that company and say, hey company, I am moving to a new place and I need to change my oven. Do you do any exchange? So I can give you my old oven and you can give me a newer one which is more energy efficient. So that is also possible. Like we can do drop and shop, that we call as repurchase. I purchased again, but I got a better and efficient work to go with that. So that is what we mean by repurchase of my services. So that is also possible. We can do that. Okay. What if there was an old cabinet, old cabinet which I was using to keep my books? Maybe it is not needed. It is very old. Maybe I do not have that much space in my newer place, or I already have built-in wardrobe and I do not need it. It could be possible. So if it is an old cabinet, I may say let's discard it. It is no longer needed, and I no point to move it to a new place and then store it there. Maybe there are not needed for that. So in those type of things, I would retire some of my stuff. I do not need them, and some stuff can be retained. So I have put some flowers into my garden. Now I can't pluck flowers and take it to my place. Maybe I have garden there also, but I have to get that garden ready for a while and then only I can move it. So some things it would be better that I retain in the old place. I keep it as it is into the old place. Maybe I would perform a revisit to that particular thing after some time. Once I settled, once I have a place to get my flower plots from old place to new place, I may take it. So that is what we call retain. So these are the 7 R's of migration: relocate, rehost, replatform, refactor, repurchase, retire, and retain. And we will now see the technical implementations of that, how we relate these into cloud workload. So same concept, I'm moving to cloud. Let's say my on-prem world, I'm using VMware workload or I'm using containerized workload. So what can I do when I'm trying to move to cloud? We are trying to create VMware on-prem to VMC on AWS. VMware gives you a way to provide a similar infrastructure in cloud, and that is what we call relocate. So what I'm doing here, I'm relocating the same virtual machine, same container I was running, it was in Kubernetes or Docker, that has been moved to my VMC or containers on AWS workload. So that is how I can move or relocate my application. Second is, let's say I'm running a homegrown database on a physical server. I have a database which is very unique to my business, which I created, and now I want to bring it. Currently, it is running on a physical server. What I can do, let's say this physical server here needed 4 CPU and it needed 8 GB of RAM. I will go into cloud. I will get a server which can provide 4 CPU and 8 GB of RAM and move my database on top of it. That is what we call rehost. So what we did, we rehosted our application. Application is still same, but instead of being running from on-prem world, we are running it from cloud. So we rehosted our application using this method. So that is called rehost. What else can be done? Let's go ahead and talk about those aspects of what else can be done on that. Old Windows servers I have. Maybe I'm having Windows 2003, Windows 2008, and those servers are no longer supported by Windows or by Microsoft, or I have some database engines. I was using MySQL and I want to change this MySQL database to Amazon Aurora, which is cloud native. I was running Windows 2012. I want to bring it to 2019. So what I'm doing here, I am performing replatform. I am making small adjustment, not a huge adjustment, some small adjustments I am making on my application. So I am running a database. Here it was running on Windows 2003 server. I moved that database into cloud, but I changed its operating system to the latest version of Windows server. Or I was running a MySQL, I changed it to Amazon Aurora. So what I'm doing here, this is called lift. This one here is called lift and shift. Lift the workload and shift it. This one, replatform, is referred in lots of terminology is lift, tinker. This is the word they use. Tinker means little bit of change, not a huge change, and shift. That's what we mean by replatform. So we made little bit of changes, little bit of adjustment, and now we are able to move that workload to cloud. That is what we mean by lift, tinker, and shift, which is called replatform. So rehost, replatform. What if I am using something which is a very, very old application, like a legacy mainframe application? And that mainframe application cannot be ported. I'm using, let's say, mainframe application, or I am using services like AS400. Those type of system cannot run in cloud. So what I would do, I would redesign it to become a cloud native. I would be refactoring it, or I would call it I am redesigning that whole application, or I am re-architecting the whole application. So it is now using Lambda function, DynamoDB, and all modern services provided by cloud. That is what we mean by redesign or re-architect or refactor. So replatform when I'm doing a small modification, but here it is a complete overhaul which we are doing into refactor. So hope this answers question for Ashutosh that replatform and refactor are two different things. They are not the same. Moving on, what else? Maybe I have some on-prem CRM, customer relationship management services, HR system or finance system. I want to use similar system, but those systems are proprietary. I want to use modern systems for that. So I can look for a solution which is cloud-based and which are subscription model. So maybe I want to use a VPN server, I want to use a HR system, maybe I want to use a customer management system. So in cloud, I could go ahead and say, hey, I would be using Salesforce. So Salesforce can be a better option than my homegrown CRM services. So when I'm just replacing the tool I was using, I am using the similar tool, but from a different vendor in a different efficient modern method. I would call I repurchased. I dropped the old thing and I bought the new thing into my cloud. Like you change your mobile, you repurchase. You are still having a mobile, but you bought it from a new vendor or you bought it from a new supplier. So that is what we mean by repurchase. The next one here is your maybe some old services which are not needed. So you moved to cloud and instead of using a DNS server off on-prem, you are using Route 53 service by AWS. You were using your old load balancers. Now you use ELB on AWS, which is Elastic Load Balancing. You were using tape devices on-prem, and now you are trying to use Glacier as a service in cloud. So the old services which are not needed anymore, what you would do with them, you would retire those old services so you do not keep on running them, because we have already find out a better way to run those services into cloud. Like I was using a monitoring system into on-prem. Now in cloud, CloudWatch is the monitoring system, so I would use that. So that's how I am retiring some of my application. But some application in which, let's say, you cannot migrate them, there is a legal requirement to keep those server on-prem, or there is latency requirement, or there is some compliance requirement that those servers cannot be moved away from physical location. So that time I may be just retaining those things. Retaining means I will not be touching them. And sometime this is also referred as revisit, means maybe in my first phase of migration I'll not migrate it, but maybe in my second or third or any other phase of migration I would revisit and see should it be migrated or not. So these are what we mean by 7 R's of migration when you start using these services if the need be. Okay. Any questions here? Any doubts? Any confusions here? Anything which is not clear in these 7 R's of migration? Now, let's say you are an organization and you have, let's say, 200 application which you want to migrate. Now, I don't expect that you would use only one of them. What you may say, okay, some of my applications which is I'm using, 10 of them should be retired. I do not need them anymore. 40 of them, I would be performing rehost on that. 50 of them, I may be performing a replatform on that. So point I'm trying to clarify here is that it is not one size fits all. You may be creating a combination depending on your business, depending on your application requirement. So some application will be good for rehosting, some you would be repurchasing, some would be retired, some would be retained, some would be refactored, some would be relocated. So it purely depends on what your use case is. Every aspect has its own plus, its own minuses. Like some places, refactor require lots of planning because you are basically rewriting the whole code. So that can be a little more complicated than expected. So we make sure that you are aware that which strategy would be helpful to you. And there are tools available, and those tools should be able to help you in understanding like which specific method to use. Should it be well suited for rehost? Should it be replatformed? Should it be done something else? All of that can be provided by your service provider. Your service provider can help you in identifying these various aspects of your migration should not be a problem at all. So that's how your migration would be actually carried out, right? Any questions here? How do you manage server with integration? Can you elaborate, Nuruddin? What do you mean by integration? So Ashutosh, you have a question, repurchase one more time. Let me see, I can get some information further on that. You are looking for repurchase. Give me a minute. I'll talk about that. Nuruddin, you have to elaborate your question. I could not understand. It is very generic. What do you mean by integration? If you elaborate it, probably I would be able to answer it. So give me a minute.
I would like to ask a question.
Please type, please type, please type. That is much
Okay.
easier. Thank you. Give me a minute. I'm looking for replatform and then repurchase. Okay, let's talk about repurchase. Give me a minute. I'll bring up a slide. So we are focusing on what could be happening when we do repurchase, what options we have. Let's talk about that repurchase option. So when I'm talking about repurchase aim to replace legacy system and move to consumption-based software as a subscription model. Consider that. Consider you have an old telephone number, old telephone. If you all remember, we previously used to have those landline phone. They still exist, but that landline phone is always connected, and you are paying a monthly cost of rental, plus you are paying call charges on that. What happens now? Landline phone, I do not need it. I am going for mobile. I bought a mobile, and in mobile, I can use pay as you go price, right? No fixed cost. I got my SIM, and anytime I need to charge, I would pay money and I would get that many minutes or that much data. I don't have to worry about paying a monthly cost. So what I did a repurchase. Here it was a, see, I wanted to talk to someone. Either it could be a telephone, which is old school, or it could be a mobile. This one is old method, so I ditched it. I'm no longer using old mobile, old telephone. I am using a mobile, which I did basically a repurchase. I am still able to talk to people, but now I pay for what I actually use. I do not pay a monthly cost associated. So that could be an example of which is there, right? So hopefully you could use that. How do you manage server with integration, maybe server with repurchase and retain? You need to provide that connectivity. So if I understood your question, let's say this is your on-prem environment and this is your cloud. You had 100 applications here, you moved 90 of them and 10 of them are still running here. So what you need to do now, you need to create a connectivity between these 10. So that would be required, and that's where you may provide network connectivity. So some services would be used from here, but for some specific use cases, these services will make a communication here, or these services will make communication here. So you need to take care of network integration between these on-prem and cloud. If you are looking for connecting on-prem as well as cloud services together, you need to figure out a network method. There are multiple ways customers can use something called a VPN, virtual private network. There is another option which is called direct connect that can also be utilized. It should not be a problem. Outpost can be another good example. Good thing, Sadiq. So Outpost is a physical server also. So AWS offers you physical servers also. So you could get this physical server on-prem, connect your workload here, run your application here, and through network, they can communicate to remaining services on AWS. So that can also be possible. You could use that. So Outpost is a solution which Sadiq mentioned. It can also be a way to run cloud services on premises, should not be a problem. How do we migrate application from shared hosting with data without data loss and downtime? So there are services available for that. One of the services called your application migration service. So that service will do application migration service. That service will help you to perform migration. What it will do? It will take your server and start performing replication. And once replication is done, then you will change your DNS entry. Your DNS was pointing to this server. When a replication is properly done, you will perform a cutover and your data would be served from the system. So services like application migration services, that is what can be used. For database migration, the services exist, which is called DMS, database migration service. So we could use those services also. So see, You may not be the only customer who have these use cases, right? So customer have already migrated thousands and thousands of application. So tools exist, best practices exist, documentation exist, workaround exist, which you could follow and still maintain the similar type of infrastructure in on-prem as well as on cloud. So shared hosting with data loss, without data loss, yes, you could do it. Downtime will be minimal, but it cannot be like not for every type of application it will be zero downtime. But what you could do, that you may have a minimal downtime, or you may put an approach where you may have almost zero downtime for your application. So it depends on what strategy you are using for migration. That would be there, right? Simple example, when you are going into flight. So when I'm moving from place A to place B into flight, obviously for that duration, my network is not connected. I cannot make mobile call when a flight is taking off. When flight reaches to an altitude of 30,000 feet, maybe my flight provider would allow me to make mobile calls, but maybe for a short duration, I was unreachable, but afterward I am reachable. It depends. If you are too concerned, take a satellite phone with you. It is not dependent on your flight. You could manage it even whenever you are, but obviously there is a cost associated. So Osbaj depends on what you are looking for, how much cost you want to bear. That's what you could use. And if it comes to physical data transportation, there is something called Snow family devices, and those Snow family is a physical device, and through this physical device also you could migrate your data, right? I hope this thing is clear. On-prem side, on previous slide, there was a term landing zone. We are not covering Ashutosh here landing zone. It is a long, lengthy topic and it requires lots and lots of understanding of AWS. But landing zone I covered in some of my trainings. You could find them on Udemy, and their landing zone is covered in detail. What is the idea? I'll briefly talk about as the question has come. So let's say you are into place A. Now you are going to place B. You are moving city or moving country. Now, when you are going, this is a huge country. You need to decide which specific airport you will be landing on. So let's say I moved and came to Heathrow as an airport. Now, this is my landing place. Once I'm here, I have to take care of a taxi service who could pick me up. That taxi service should be taking me to a hotel. Then I should have my lunch delivered to me. Then I should have a mobile phone SIM delivered to me here. So what I'm doing, I'm making a preparation for my workload landing. So once I reach there, all of these things would be readily available for me. That concept is called landing zone. Okay, so that is possible. Engineer AB, you mentioned about another service called data sync. Yes, exactly. So data sync is a service which is used for data transfer. So you could do server migration depending on your use case, and then you could perform data migration also, and that depends on various services. So let me bring that up. So there are various services for data migration, like you may have different type of data like file system, object, block storages, tape devices, other cloud provider data, and that you can bring to AWS. And for that, services are used called data sync. There is a service called storage gateway, transfer family based services, Snow family services. So all these services helps you in migrating data from on-prem to cloud-based workload. All right. So maybe you have 100 application, 90 of them would be something which is easy to migrate, 10 which may be complicated, so you could take help of AWS. Professional services of AWS can help you, partner services of AWS can help you, and that's how you can migrate it. But probably you are not the first person who is doing cloud migration. There are a lot of companies, people, application who migrated to the cloud, so you should be able to leverage those best practices by taking help of documentation, best practices, reference architecture. All of these services are available in AWS if you want to do migration. Okay. Any more questions, anyone? Any doubts, any confusions, anything which is not clear? So I hope you got a better understanding on what migration is and how it can be initiated. Obviously, it is not a deep dive. It will be taking too much time and there will be a lot of tools and services, but at least you have idea now that what tools exist and what are my 7R strategies to follow if I want to do migration. And I can send some links to Sadiq, and Sadiq can forward you those links so that you will have additional information to explore things related to migration. Any last questions? I will wait 2 more minutes before calling it completion. We have 1 hour window which we completed. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to take any last 2 questions if there is something. No questions? All right.
Hey, I have a question.
Can you please type if it is possible? Okay, go ahead. There you are the only one. Let's go ahead. Go ahead, please. Sashma. Shamsha, sorry.
In aviation, we use data and voice which we store for investigations. So is it possible to store that data, and did you store before? I hope you understand my question.
Can you repeat the last phrase? Is it possible? Then I lost you. Is it possible to?
To store for like long time, and did you store before?
So you want to store data for a long time. That's what you are saying?
Voice and data for an
Yeah.
investigation for aviation investigations.
See, then let me give you an answer like that. So you selected a file and you stored into cloud. Now, you said you could put a policy on that this data is used for some investigation or there is some legal proceeding, and I want to put a policy that for 5 years this data should not be deleted. So even if you try to delete it afterward, even you stored it, but once you confirm the policy of 5 year, it will not be deleted. It would be retained. That is what we can provide as a legal evidence. So whatever data it is, you could put a policy on that, and that policy will ensure that even somebody hacks into your account and is trying to delete that data, it won't be deleted till the lock of 5 year expires on that. So that type of things are possible. You could do that. Services we can use it for is called Amazon S3 Glacier, and Amazon S3 is services where you can put lock on that, and it will be also cheaper, as Sadiq said. So cost is cheaper, and you could put retention policy of your requirement like 5 year, 10 year, 15 year, no problem at all. Cloud provider would not delete your data unless you delete it. For cloud provider, the data is just ones and zeros. They do not go and look at what Ashish uploaded or what Sadiq uploaded. They do not have that business. Make sense? Any more questions? Last questions, please, anyone? Outpost due to data residency law. No problem. Let me bring that up. Give me a minute. I'll bring that information to you. So let me draw that. So let's consider that you have some workload. Let's say you have a hospital. Just give an example. And you have some data of the patient stored here. This is your physical servers. Can you please check if you are all on mute? So this is where your data is stored. Now, if you move your data outside and you put it into cloud, maybe it is stored, but this is very critical data. Based on that, you treat patient or operations are carried out or medication is given to the patient based on the data. So I may not want to save it into cloud. What if the network breaks in between? What I will be giving it to patient? So in those kind of situation, Sadiq, is it a way to mute someone who is not? Yeah, I was able to do it. Thank you. Sorry. So my data is stored here. And now I don't want to move it to cloud because it's a very, very important data. Or let's say it is payment information of a bank, and bank do not want to store the data outside. whatever it is. So in that case, what you could do, you could buy a device or you can lease a device from AWS, which is called Outpost. So you would say to AWS, I need an Outpost, a physical device, which is capable enough to store data locally, and I can run my application directly on that. So if you are running, let's say, a virtual server, that virtual server by default started into cloud, but once you have Outpost, a physical device, that server would be started on your premises. So even if you have to access it very fast, or some legal requirement has to be fulfilled that data cannot move outside of premises, that you can fulfill using AWS Outpost. But it is not a private cloud. It is not something which is just running without connectivity. You would still be needing connectivity to get connected to that. So that will still be required. Let me bring you a link to one of my training. There I talked a little bit more on the Outpost. So you could find some training on Udemy, and one of the training where I have discussed about Outpost is this called Spatialized Infrastructure. It is a free training, so anybody want to go and further explore it should be able to get it, should not be an issue. Okay. Any last questions? So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and hope learned something new and have a better understanding on migration. Thanks for your time. Please provide feedback. Probably Sadiq would reach out to you for collecting feedback. So help us understanding what it worked, and then based on that, we could then have more sessions like that. Should not be a problem, right? All the
Thank,
best. Have a good one. Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you so much, Mr. Ashish. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. Have a good
Okay.
one, everyone.
Thank
Have
you
a good
so much.
weekend.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.